Welcome back. In this video, we are going to install Unity 3D, which is the game engine that we're going to use in order to build our video games. So you just need to search for Unity 3D download and then go to unity3d.com. So here, this is going to be the download that we're going to require. There are two options as you see here. Actually, there's a third one to download the beta, but we're going to use the Unity Hub, which allows us to very easily select the different Unity versions and actually even install different Unity versions at the same time on our machine, which can be useful if you're working on different projects and maybe you're working with multiple people together and then you want to stay on the same version instead of changing the version all the time. So that's something that will be very handy when it comes to Unity. So here you can just download the Unity Hub setup exe, and once the exe is downloaded, let's get started installing it. The first thing you will need to check is the license agreement. So read through it, and once you're done reading and you can agree with it, click on agree. Then you can select the destination folder, click install. And once all of that is done, you can run Unity Hub and click finish. So as you can see, it says you have no valid license. And you have multiple options here. You can either manage licenses, dismiss it, or you can select manual activation and save the license request. Then go to license.unity3d.com manual. Here you can then create your Unity account, and once you have created it, you can log in with that account. Once you're logged in, you will see this manual activation here, where you can then browse and select the file that you just created, this Unity license ALF file. Now let's open this file, click next, and activate the Unity Personal Edition. Then you have to select the option that suits you. In your case, you would select, usually, I don't use Unity in a professional capacity unless you make a bunch of money already. In my case, I have a company that does less than 100,000 in the last fiscal year, but I'm still going to select this one for demonstration purposes. And then you can download the license file. And back in Unity, you can actually select this license file. So select this new license file that was generated for you, click confirm, and you see that you have a license now. On top of that, you should log in with your Unity Hub account that you just created. And once you're done with that, you can go back from the preferences, and here in projects, you can either add a new project or you can go over to installs, where you can then locate your Unity versions because, well, you can't add a project without having a Unity version installed. So let's go ahead and add a Unity version. And as I said, if you have Unity installed already, you can locate it from your Unity Hub, but I assume that you haven't installed Unity yet. So at this point, once we're in installs, let's go and click on add. And you see that there are recommended releases, official releases, and pre-releases that we can select here. And they will be different depending on when you install this and when you use Unity Hub. In my case, the latest version that is recommended is 2020.3.4, and the one that we are going to use, however, is going to be the same one. So we are going to use the 2021 version, and you can go here over to download archive because we're going to use a specific one. So what will open up is going to be this screen from where you can download and install different versions of Unity. You can see even older versions such as Unity 5 and so forth are available here. We're going to use 2021.1.0, which is going to be the one that you can find here when you scroll down, and you can just press on this button and this will open up this little pop-up where you can just click on Open Unity Hub, and this will then open the version in Unity Hub. You can see here, add modules to Unity 2021.1.0. So if you want everything to look exactly the same in your Unity when you go through the course and follow the instructions, then I would really recommend that you use the same version as we do, because otherwise things might look differently and then you might get confused because the steps are not exactly the same and so forth. So if we are all working on the same version, it's going to be a lot easier for you as well as for us when it comes to support. So I highly recommend to select this version, and you can see Android build support in my case is selected. In your case, it might not be selected. And that is because I had this version installed already. So just make sure that you have this checked as well as the other options checked as well. This will allow you to export your games to then also run them on an Android device. So basically this will allow us to build our games to be an APK file, which we then can use and install on Android devices. If you want to use iOS build support, then you need to make sure that you are in fact running a Mac. Otherwise this won't work. Same goes for tvOS and Mac build support as well. What we're going to use as well is the Windows build support, which will then allow us to export our game so that it can run on Windows natively without using Unity. And then I recommend to have the documentation selected as well, and it will enable us to read through those descriptions, and it will make it a lot easier to understand what the individual classes do. Alright, and now let's click on install, and this will then start the installation process, which will take quite a while. And once the download is done, it will start installing, which will then take a little while as well. And then in the process, the Video Studio installer will also be installed. The Visual Studio installer is basically the same thing for Visual Studio as the Unity Hub is for Unity. So it's basically like a hub where you can then install Visual Studio and make changes to your Visual Studio installation. So as you can see, it pops up and installs Visual Studio on the side as well, which will then of course take a little while also. And this of course highly depends on the speed that you have for your internet connection. And once Visual Studio is also installed, you should see that Unity should be ready in your case. And just in case you decide to make changes to your Unity installation, you can click on those three dots here. You can either uninstall it, show where it is in the Explorer, or change the modules. So here, for example, I could deactivate Visual Studio, which is actually going to be the software that we're going to use in order to develop our games. So the code that we're going to use. And yeah, also here you can see you can add additional build supports here, for example, and also language packages. But we're not going to do that for now. If you also want to have multiple installs of Unity, you can manage that through your Unity Hub. So you could click on Add here and then select a different Unity version. This is going to be useful if you work with different teams on different projects. And for example, one team is working on the Unity 2020.3.4 version, for example, and the other team is working on a 2018 version. Then it would make sense for you to have the different Unity versions installed, because Unity doesn't always work well with different versions of projects. So that's why you should have different Unity installs in that case. But at this point, we should be able to get started making our first projects, and that's what we're going to do in the next video.